Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Illinois Farmers Market Association Winter Webinar Series, an inside look at successful chef demos at the market, hosted by University of Illinois Extension and the Illinois Farmers Market Association. My name is Lori George. I'm an educator at University of Illinois Extension, and I will be your host for today. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll do our best to begin and end within the space of your lunch hour. Questions can be added to the chat box and will be answered at the end of the presentation. So today, what I'd like to do is to introduce our speakers for today. Deborah, if you would change to, thank you. Janie Maxwell is the Executive Director of the Illinois Farmers Market Association. Jane is very passionate about local food and farmers markets. She is a registered dietitian and works to promote the health and economic impact of local foods and farmers markets. Our second speaker for today is Deborah Cavanaugh-Grant. Deborah is an Illinois Farmers Market Association board member and a certified market manager. She is retired from the University of Illinois. She retired in 2015 with more than 30 years of experience working in sustainable local food systems. She was the market manager for the Old Capitol Farmers Market in Springfield from January 2018 to April 2019. So welcome. I think, Jane, how are you? Deborah?
I'm good. Thank you for having us this morning. We really appreciate our partnership with Extension that allows us to present these webinars. So just a little bit about the Illinois Farmers Market Association. We are a statewide organization. We work to support local foods and farm systems, giving Illinois farmers markets and producers access to resources, education, and connections that will help to grow healthier and more economically vibrant communities. Next slide. You'll see on this slide that it says that we have 337 farmers markets across the state. Those are how many farmers markets are actually registered with the Illinois Farmers Market Association through our partnership with Market Maker and the Connect Fresh Collaborative. So as we start to think about this 2020 market season, if you are not a part of the Connect Fresh Illinois, Connect Fresh Collaborative, I really encourage you to go to our website and to create a profile for your market, get your vendors to create a profile so that we have the most up-to-date information available to potential consumers or customers. If you already have a profile, that's wonderful, and we really appreciate that, but we also encourage you to update it or, for example, to make it as complete as possible. Put as much information in there as you can. Link it to your Facebook page, link it to the vendors at your market so that we have a really robust way to present farmers markets across the state. Next. We are very excited to partner with the Illinois Farm Bureau this year to present our ILFMA annual conference as a part of the Live Local Conference. This year it's being held in Peoria from March 10 to 12. And I'd like to encourage all of you to attend the conference. We are very excited about it. On Tuesday, March 10th, we are offering what I would call a farmers market intensive. There will be 3 tracks, one for beginning farmers, one farmers market managers, one for farmers market managers that have maybe been at this for a little while, and then for a track on accepting link at the farmers market and growing that opportunity. But on the 11th and 12th, there are additional sessions and tracks that are being offered that are of high value to both farmers market managers and farmers market vendors. Farmers Market Association members get a significant discount, and so I really encourage you to join us in Peoria for our annual conference. Next. Well, today we're talking about chef demos, and chef demos are just a really exciting thing. And I think that when chef demos are offered at a farmer's market, it's an advantage to everybody. We find that the partners that work with us on farmers market chef demos benefit. We find the customers benefit, we find the farmers market benefits, and then, as I like to say, we see the health of the community benefit if people are actually using and consuming more local food. So what's in it for your partner? Why should you ask somebody to help you put on chef demos at your market? Well, it really does introduce businesses to the customers at the farmers market. And so if you have whatever foot traffic you have, you're going to find that people may not be familiar with this business, and it may be an opportunity for a customer not only to taste food and find that they like it, but also to foster a relationship. You actually get to see the chef, you get to see some of the people from the business. And we find that that is going to really help promote business to those local businesses that are encouraging or that are coming to your market. The other thing it can be used for from a partner standpoint is to not only promote their business, but maybe to promote something new. Maybe they're offering new menu items. Maybe they change with the seasons, and it gives everybody kind of an update or a refresher on what's going on. Maybe they're hosting some big event, and this is a way to spotlight this particular business at your market. Next. Demos are interesting, and unfortunately there's not a lot of research on the effect of chef demos at farmers markets, and so we kind of have to look at the retail sector to see what the impact of demonstrating food items in, let's say, the retail markets has done. Well, number one, it drives sales. You see these crazy numbers. It can increase sales from 10 to 25 up to 2,000%. And so this has been very well documented. So if you sample something, you not only have the opportunity to taste it, but most people like it, and then they purchase it. But more than that, they found that offering demos actually increase customer loyalty. It seems that if you are offering hospitality to someone, that they reciprocate by feeling a sense of loyalty to the organization that is offering this hospitality. It can also help turn your market into a destination. Sometimes people will just come to see the specific chef or the specific restaurant or the specific business that you're highlighting. It may not even be about the market to them, but then once they're there, they have an opportunity to experience the market. This is an interesting one. That shoppers who sample feel obligated to buy. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And we actually have seen anecdotal data that says that shoppers not only feel obligated to buy, but they feel compelled to buy. There's disappearance data from farmers markets that offer chef demos that show that the items that are demonstrated by the chef often disappear and are often in short supply that day. And so that's an interesting phenomenon. Sampling helps customers save money in that they don't purchase things that they don't like, and so it gives them an opportunity ahead of schedule to actually look at something and see if it's something they like. And again, whetting their appetite is always a great thing. Next. But more than that, it gives an education opportunity to the market. In this day and age, we read a lot of data that says that people either are lacking or are just choosing not to cook at home. And the reason for that is varied. But if the lack of skill is one of the barriers to cooking at home, then watching a chef in action, although they may be at a higher skill set than all of us observing, really does give an opportunity to see how something might be done, especially if you are using less familiar produce. Like, what do you do with it? How do you get that tough skin off of it? So there may be some barriers to using a specific product, but when a chef demonstrates how to do it, then your consumer is going to be more likely to think they can do it as well. We can teach people how to preserve food, and most importantly, I think it highlights seasonality, to try and showcase the foods that are in season and to offer them at their peak of flavor peak of ripeness and, from my professional opinion, their peak of nutrition. But it can also highlight health goals. Not every chef demo is about health, I get that. But at the same time, it is an opportunity when people are consuming more fruits and vegetables because they feel comfortable with that. That's a benefit, almost no matter how it's prepared. Next. All right. So it's pretty easy. Chefs or celebrities from the area demonstrate the recipes, taste them, and then it's up to you to figure out how often you want to do something like this. How often do you want to promote these kinds of events at your market? Next. So how do you get started, and what are some of the nuances? Deborah's going to cover a lot more of this in detail, but just so you know that chef demos fall under the sampling law, and so it's really important as your first step to check with your local health department. Most people don't realize that our state public health code, our farmers market code, is the least restrictive code across the state. It is possible for local health departments to add additional rules and requirements to the health code. So that's why it's important not only to know what the state law says, but then also to know what your particular health department says about food samples and about chef demos. Make sure that if you discuss make sure to discuss this with your local health department. Oftentimes, health departments see themselves as an educational arm, and they're excited actually to work with the community to ensure the health and safety of community members, but by doing that through education. Next. This is it'll just be in the presentation when it's done, but it's just kind of an overview of how to get your sampling license if you don't already have one, especially if you're looking at vendor sampling. If you are a certified food service, if you have a food service manager certification through your business in the restaurant industry, that is sufficient for this type of certification. Next. All right, so you'll see here there is an exemption that a vendor who possesses a permit from their local health department to conduct food service is exempted from the requirements of the sampling law, because what they have supersedes, is more in-depth than what is required under the basic law. But again, this is something you would have to check with your local health department to see if they concur with this. Next. Now, there are some alternatives. Not every market is going to have the equipment or the capacity to do a live demonstration and then pass out samples. But we do know that when people see something being demonstrated, they get a chance to taste it, they like it, they tend to buy it. But we can also just serve up smells. You know, we don't have to actually serve up the food, but there are some alternatives if you want to offer a chef's demo or a food demo without actually doing the sampling. You could do the you could make the item in a certified kitchen off-site and then put it in these little sample cups and serve those at the market, or you could just demonstrate it, highlight the foods that you're using, but not actually, maybe give out recipe cards, but not actually give out samples of that particular item. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Deborah next, so she can give you some of the nuts and bolts of her experience with the Old Capitol Farmers Market.
Hello, thank you, Janie. I'm Deborah Cavanaugh-Grant, and as Lori introduced me, I'm a retired extension specialist educator from the University of Illinois. And then after I retired, I had a consulting business. In my first year of retirement, I had the opportunity of working for the Abraham Lincoln Memorial Hospital as they started up their farmers market in Lincoln, Illinois. So that was, you know, a really good opportunity for me. And since I've retired, every year I've done farm inspections for markets that are vendor-only markets. And then in 2018, I was hired by the Illinois Stewardship Alliance. They have a partnership with Downtown Springfield, Inc., to be the market manager. So this market goes from May through October. It's held on Saturdays and on Wednesdays. And then they have 6 markets that are held once a month. Those are the holiday winter markets. Obviously, the holiday markets are in November and December, and then there's 4 winter markets. This market's been going on for 30 years, so it's a long time market. Chef Demos has been a part of it, you know, for quite some time. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the responsibilities of the farm market manager and or volunteers that you have maybe coordinating this effort. So the first thing is that you need to develop chef demo guidelines. And working with the Old Capitol Farmers Market, this is a market that has a lot of management to it. So we had all types of guidance documents for, you know, for our vendors, for our business partners that had, we had a special tent for business partners. So when I got involved with this market, we looked at clarifying, you know, what were these guidelines? And that became really important because when you were going to solicit potential people to be involved with this, you had, you know, a well thought out document. As Janie said too, it's really important that you have a conversation with your health department. We were very fortunate in Sangamon County to have an excellent health department, and it was a great collaborative relationship, and so they were very supportive. And matter of fact, they reviewed this document before it was sent out. Then you have to secure these chef demo participants. And the other thing about Old Capitol Farmers Market, there was a lot of effort on marketing the market. There was all these different marketing channels. So one of the things as the market manager, I needed to make sure that the market started in May. So starting in February and March is securing these participants. And we only did chef demos on Saturdays. We made a decision just to do them on Saturdays. So we needed to have that all in place for the publicity for the market. And at our market, we had every Saturday chef demos, we had exercising, and we had music. So the documents that were developed about that included all of those components to the market. And one of the things that's, to me, is very important in all of this is this communication with the chef demo participants. And anybody who's ever worked with chefs and other people, you know, they're very busy, they have a lot going on. And so it's really incumbent on you to make sure that they understand what the expectations are, you know, what you're going to provide to them. So prior to each week's market, I would send out an email to them and I would say, hey, you know, don't forget you're going to be coming to the market. And I would ask them what they were planning to prepare. And this was, number one, we wanted to know that the recipes that they could pass out. And then we also wanted to let them know what was available at the market. So the Old Capitol Farmers Market used Manage My Market, and I don't know how many on the call have used that tool to manage your market, but it has a really nice link that can be used by both farmers and the shoppers, where you can see exactly what vendors are selling what products. So as Janie's talked about, it becomes really important if you're going to prepare a dish, you know, where can somebody buy that? Because invariably somebody would, you know, watch the demonstration and say, okay, where do I go now to purchase these things? And then the other thing for me was really important, and it's probably a little bit about my age, but I really think it's important that you say thank you to these people, you know, afterwards. So I would do that every week. Okay, so marketing again was really important for our market. We would develop a flyer that included the chef demos for the entire season. And working at the Illinois Stewardship Alliance, they had very talented staff there that assisted me in preparing, high quality documents, flyers, and things like that. And then we had a website, both that was on the Illinois Stewardship Alliance, and then we had a specific farmers market website with Downtown Springfield Inc. For the Old Capitol Farmers Market. And so we would have that info on there. And then we made an effort. We would get photographs from the chefs, and we would develop a Facebook posting that, okay, here's this chef demo this week. This is what they're going to be preparing, so that we could get people's interest. And then we had a farmers market tent, as most markets do, or someplace where people can go. And the chef demo was adjacent to that tent. And we would have a sandwich board sign right there that was there, and to reminding people, okay, the chef demo is going to start at 9:30, and this is who the chef is today. So again, if you really want to make this work, it helps to let people know, when that you're going to do this every week, and how they can get information about it. So again, you have to decide, and as Janie said, people who are involved with farmers markets, we have markets in our state where people come to a spot and people set up tables and they sell things and they leave. And then we have markets like the Old Capitol Farmers Markets and others, that have a lot of regulations and procedures and things in place like that. So this chef demos can be used by any size of market. So the thing that's important, again, because if you want people to be there, you need to decide, okay, are you going to do this every week? Are you going to just do it the first, Saturday of the month? And then even if you just want to, check this out and see how this would work, maybe you have a special event, in your community, or I know we did a special chef demo during Farmers Market Week. So I think, it's up to you to decide. The time for you to do this, our market went from 8 to 12:30. So we tried to figure out, what was the best time. So when I was involved with the market, it started at 10 to 11. And last year they decided to do it a little bit earlier. So they did it from 9:30 to 10:30. So, it's up to you to decide that. And then in terms of the length, our market demo was about 30 minutes long. And then there was an opportunity, chefs would stand there and chat with people and things like that. But we pretty much said that the demo would last for an hour. And as I mentioned, the chef demo, a special tent, you'll see some photographs of it, was purchased. And it was adjacent to the market tent. It was right on the corner where the market intersected. And so it was a very high trafficked area. So that's important too, that you make sure you have a place where people can have easy access. Well, how do you, securing these people, how do you do it? And where are you looking for these people? So obviously, local chefs. So you get the word out. We did posting on our social media and other things. And then obviously, we knew, people knew these chefs and made contacts to them directly. We're very fortunate in Springfield to have a culinary school at Lincoln Land Community College. It's a really excellent program. They do a lot of support for our community in many ways. So the director, I reached out to her, and then several staff would come, and they made a commitment to come, someone from Lincoln Land, at least once a month. And that was also an opportunity for students to participate, so they really appreciated that. We have several food prep businesses in the area, and that was, as Janie mentioned, it's an opportunity for them to share information about what they're doing. The one person that I'm thinking of specifically, they did what Janie shared at the end in terms of giving samples, and they prepared the dish, people could watch them, and then they brought the samples. One of the things that you have to make sure you do if you're doing that is that in the transportation of these samples, you have to be in compliance with health food regulations in terms of the temperature that you're transporting these items. So that's important too, just keep that in mind. Hospital food service staff was an important part of our market too. People would come from that. The main sponsor for our market was St. John's Hospital, and I'm sure some of you might be involved with farmers markets where you also get hospital support. So reaching out to them can be helpful. The Abraham Lincoln Memorial Hospital in Lincoln, they were the sponsors of their market, and they also had chef demos every week, and their staff provided a lot of support. And as Janie can tell you, this is her profession. She's a registered dietitian and a professor for students. So you can have someone like Janie as an RD to come in and do these demos. And then the interns too. We've had several dietetic interns come in and do these demonstrations. So we can talk about further if people have other ideas or people who've come to your market. But this is a list of who participated at the Old Capitol Farmers Market. One of the things that's important in this chef demo guidelines, we were pretty clear about what we would provide to the chefs because they have to bring a lot of things to the market in terms of their cooking utensils and all that kind of stuff. So every week, adjacent to the farm market stand, we would set up 2 long tables. One was where they would cook the food, and then we have a prep table to the side. And then you can see this photograph there under the health regulations, and I have another slide that'll show you about sampling at the farmer's market, what's required. So we had a tent, we had tables set up, a local church provided us with a lot of chairs, so we'd set up 16 to 20 chairs. Again, I mentioned the signage before. We were fortunate in Springfield to have electricity working with the city, and we had several areas throughout the market where they could access electricity. We provided a garbage can, and then what you can see in this photograph is this hand washing station and supplies. So in the photo you can see, and this is required by law, you need to have some soap, and then you see the container there, and it has a spigot, and one of the things that is required under the guidelines is that you have some type of bin or container that can provide you with a way to wash your hands where you don't have to touch it. So with this, you could turn on the water, have the water come out, rinse your hands, and then you could use a paper towel to shut the spigot off. And then you have paper towel, and then you have this basin here to catch the wastewater. We also would provide hand sanitizer at our booth. And here's the document I was referring to. It's called the Food Product Sampler Handling Guide. And you can see the details that are in here. And I'm going to ask Janie if she can share a link, or I think we can share something so that you can get a copy. But this is a really nice thing to give if you're managing a farmer's market or if you're a farmer on the call and you want to know what's required. This is a really handy document that was prepared by the Illinois Department of Public Health. We were a vendor-only market in Springfield. We went to great lengths to have farm inspections to do that. And one of the things that was very important to us is that we wanted the chefs to procure seasonal ingredients based on what was at the market that day. Now, obviously, when you're making a recipe, there's many ingredients, so we didn't expect everything in there, but obviously, at least one thing, and preferably more, and that sometimes some chefs did better than others, but they would then share, okay, well, I got the tomatoes from this stand, and I got the green pepper from here. So it's really important that you do that. I did have one hiccup where a chef came and he went to Schnucks. So even with all the information I gave him and the guidelines and things like that, he showed up at the farmer's market, and everything that he was using, he had purchased at the grocery store. So that really wasn't what we had in mind. But after that, that was just one time he did that. So again, your demo should be based on what is seasoned and available at the market that day. And we just really, you got to make sure that you do that. Otherwise, I think it sort of defeats the purpose. And that, as Janie mentioned too, it's an opportunity for the vendors to have increased sales. And we didn't have any specific data, but again, just anecdotal things that people would share, the vendors, they would sell out on some of these items, and people would come up to them and say, yeah, I have this recipe. So in terms of the chef demo participant responsibilities, and you can see there's Sean Keeley, who was a professor at Lincoln Land Community College, doing a chef demo. We would ask people to provide recipes. And so in the Facebook posting that week, we could link information to that, give details about what was being prepared. And then I would make copies, or they could make copies if they had the ability to do that. And we would pass those out to people. It was, as Janie mentioned, too, an opportunity for these businesses or culinary programs to share information. So everybody would bring brochures or whatever. So those could include their marketing materials and business cards. And I love this photograph. We had a special event for Farmers Market Week, and we, obviously living in Springfield, we have people who do Abraham Lincoln, and this guy is like the famous person around in Springfield. And he was walking by, and then one of the things I did when I was involved with the market is to get these market bags. So you can see in his hand, he has our new market bag, and it's Abraham Lincoln riding a bike. And so I said, hey, would you let me take your photograph? So I thought that was really cute with Abe loving his Illinois Farmers Market. Well, thank you very much. And at this time, if there's any questions, we can, Janie and I can take some questions.
Okay, thank you. So if you have the ability to unmute yourself, please go ahead and do so. And feel free to ask your questions, or if you are a little shy, you can go ahead and enter them into the chat box, and I'll relay them to the speakers. We do have one question. It says, how does one become a certified market manager?
Okay, Janie, do you want me to answer it, or do you?
I think you should answer it as our certified market manager.
Okay. Well, when I was working for Extension, and Lori is also a certified market manager, I think this was it 213, Lori, 214?
Yes, something like that.
Okay, so the state of Michigan has a very vibrant farmers market association, and they started a certification program. So the University of Illinois Extension just said, hey, working with the Illinois Farmers Market Association, could we have a program in Illinois? So we only did this here 1 year, where people would sign on. We would have remote presentations, so they could we would sign up with a webinar type system where we could watch their speakers and their webinars. But it was a very comprehensive program where we had homework. It went on for several months. I think it was 9 or 10 sessions. And then there was an opportunity to do continuing professional development. But Lori, since I retired, do they have any more of these been done?
No, we haven't. We haven't really had a request for it. We do have the Illinois Farmers Market Association does have a training manual, and we are in the process of discussions on developing some sort of training off of that. But right now, no.
And one of the things, too, just to share with you, as Lori mentioned, this training manual, one of the things as a member of the Illinois Farmers Market Association, you would have access to this manual. And when I worked for Extension, we developed this manual, and some of you that worked in Extension might know Mike Rogie. He was involved with that. And then Lori came on, and then for the most recent version, she was the point person for doing the updates and revisions. So it's a really nice comprehensive resource for all kinds of aspects of farmers markets.
This is a very good question. Thank you very much. Another question, what about fresh fruit like apples and pears? Do the sliced pieces need to be kept at specific temperatures? Also, anything special to sample jam and jelly? Other than disposable spoons, is hand washing still required? Okay, let's take this. Sliced pieces that need to be kept at specific temperatures I believe that would be under the cottage food laws.
to my understanding, again, each health department can ask for different things, but a fresh piece of produce can be sampled without it being kept at a specific temperature.
Do you have any information on jams and jellies? Again, that's going to be under the cottage food law.
Yeah, that's different. That's under the cottage food law.
And if you want some additional information on the cottage food law, if you go to the Illinois Stewardship Alliance website and enter cottage food law, they will have a new guide that was put out, I believe, at the end of 2018 to discuss the new changes and updates on that.
Lori, it might be more direct. What is it? Garden plate. What's the extension website for the cottage food law?
From garden gates to dinner plates.
.org, I believe.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That would be an excellent resource, and if you'd like to follow up with me, I'll look it up for you and answer specifically, but I don't want to give you the wrong answer. So,
but the main thing to remember is, as Janie said, through my years working with Farmers Market, it was a long process for us. We had worked with IDP, Illinois Department of Public Health, over the years and developed this great relationship, and to have these, laws passed that we would have these guidelines that were uniform across the state was really important. But still, as Janie said, each health department can have stricter regulations. So for any of these things, it can be, you can go and see what it says in the state guidelines, but you still have to contact your local health department.
Right. I was going to say that comes back to the question about the sampling permits. If the market wanted to host the demo, we have had a couple examples of markets being the host of the demo, and that has met with some pushback at the health department level. But if it's different if it is done by the restaurant or the food service industry where people are permitted. But again, that would be something you would have to check, because there should be an exemption in place for those people to demo at your market without additional requirements. But again, that's a local health department call.
Right, and then related to that is that in Springfield, we were not allowed to have the licensing. And what happened is that, as Janie mentioned before, you have a chef, obviously, or a culinary instructor. They all have all this proper certification, to do these chef demos, but they still need to have their permit. So, it becomes this interesting thing like their food permit. And then when we, for people to sell certain items at our market, people had to pay a permit. So that became the big sticky wicket because they're very expensive, right? So they have things that you can do it for 1 day permit or for, the season. So again, it just is something that you have to contact your local health department. And then to go back to, Sarah asked what is the preferred time frame? So we blocked out an hour in that space, and then some chefs wanted to stay and chat, and it became a place where people would have conversation. But for most people, it was an hour. They would come and set up, start preparing, getting things ready. The demonstration would last maybe 15 minutes, and then people would stay around and chat. So, you could do it in a half an hour, but we just kept sort of an hour time slot in terms of traffic and things like that there at our market. And then, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Well, they were talking about the sampling jams and jellies, not making them, so that still would fall under the sampling rules here in Illinois.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So just to let you know on that.
I was going to add one other thing if I could.
Sure.
And that is that when you sample, if we go back to that, we don't need to, but you think about the picture of the little souffle cups with the lids, they're not particularly attractive. And so just a reminder that as people demo at your market, to enhance the workstation, enhance it so that it looks inviting And so that what they're cooking in or what they're serving into is inviting, because we eat with our eyes and all of our senses actually. And so we're trying to kind of appeal to that as we're doing these food demos. I think if you think about like the retail side, those are very sterile, and that's fine. We have to abide by food safety, but we also can make the station and the event pretty and inviting, so that people have this sense that this is kind of a lovely experience to be a part of. I've seen demonstrations at farmers markets kind of both ways, and I think the ones where there's a little more attention paid to aesthetic tend to be a little bit more inviting to the public to come to the table and participate.
Yeah, and I just changed the slide, Janie, here, and you can see these little containers. So another thing, and I was reticent to share this, is we would encourage chefs to bring recyclable, compostable kind of containers. So just sort of some awareness about that. But you can see, like, as Janie said, that's pretty nice looking. I mean, it would be something that somebody, would want to sample. It's attractive, and we would have tablecloths and all kinds of stuff to make it more, people felt like they were at a little bistro or something.
Right.
Okay, so we do have another question. It says, I believe it is a farmer's market, require vendors to have their sampling permits, but do we as a market need to have one as well to host chef demos? Currently, an outside organization hosts their chef demos, but does the market need a sampling permit, or are they able to do it under the market's permit since it's happening at their market?
I think that is the nuanced question about what the health department would require. Because is there a permitting cost? Is there an event cost? And like I said, we've had some examples across the state where the market held a sampling license certificate and was not able to represent a variety of products at the market. So it really will depend on how the local health department interprets that.
And a lot of it came down to, in Sangamon County, and I can only speak from Sangamon, it's because if me personally as the manager, I went and got all my certification for sampling. Just number one, because I wanted to know what was required, and I went to the online class and did all of that. They didn't see that by the fact that I was the manager standing there. I wasn't doing the sampling, right? That the chef was, or the other person and the volunteer with them. So they had a requirement that those people had to have that certification, not the market.
Right.
Yeah. At least that was in Sangamon County's perspective.
Question. This is Carmen Holmes in Illinois. I'm concerned about the market managing certification. If it's obtained outside of the state of Illinois, if one were to go or participate in a program, is it going to be acceptable for the state of Illinois?
I think there are two parts to that. One is that the certification is really to the benefit of the market manager because of enhancing your knowledge about what goes on. But you're right, if you take that class in Michigan or New York, who currently offer it, you would be talking about the laws and the regulations that pertain to those markets and not necessarily Illinois. Not that we wouldn't accept that management certificate, but that the laws and the nuances of how they're administered might differ from state to state. If you are interested in taking the certification course, just send me an email, and maybe Lori I can type that in. Send me an email and we'll put into queue the number of people that might be interested in becoming certified market managers, because that's something we offered in the past in partnership with Michigan, and something we'd be happy to explore again if we're not able to do our own Illinois certification program, because we always encourage our market managers to kind of take that next level of education that makes them feel more confident and gives them the tools that they need to manage their markets well. So, just let me know, and we'd be happy to try and work with you on that.
Okay, thank you.
I want to go back to one question that was asked earlier about hand washing stations. Other than disposable spoons, is hand washing still required? The majority of farmers markets, most times you'd have to check with the Department of Public Health to see what their local rules and regulations are. There are many farmers markets that don't have hand washing stations, and they use the hand sanitizers. When I do food safety trainings here in Illinois, I make sure to tell the growers that hand washing stations and hand washing with soap and water is more advantageous than the hand sanitizers. If you have dirty hands and you put hand sanitizer on your hands, you're just sanitizing the dirt. You're not getting them clean. So hand washing stations are probably something that's going to be, it's not necessary, but it would be advantageous for the market to have. One of the programs that will be offered in March at the Live Local Conference in Peoria, they'll be talking about food safety and food safety issues at farmers markets. So if you can, join us over there and we'll talk more about that.
And so in Sangamon County, if you were going to do any food sampling, you had to have a hand washing station. So again, that becomes a thing where a different county, and that's why I think a lot of work was done to develop, this system of, because this is relatively inexpensive. What I'm showing now in this picture with that container, you have some paper towel and a bucket. So it's not hard to do, but if you're going to do any kind of sampling, and then obviously, our food, we had food trucks, we had people that made smoothies and stuff. They definitely, they had to have the food handler's permit. So that's the thing, that was required. At least in Sangamon.
We did have one comment that says that the certificate option may be good to share in the ILFMA Facebook page to see who else is interested. So if you are interested in a program in Illinois for that, contact Janie Maxwell. Her email is up there in the notes. Or contact the Illinois Farmers Market Association, and they will work with you on developing something. I don't see. Go ahead.
This is Deborah. If anyone is interested, I would be glad to share with you personally the chef demo guideline sheet. It's just a 2-page handout that I developed, and that I'd be glad to share with anybody who wants it. They could use it if they wanted to.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and put your email address on the chat box? That would be great. Okay. I don't see any other questions at this time. I would like to, if you could, Deborah, go ahead and go to the next slide. So our last Illinois Farmers Market Association webinar will be on March 16th. We're going to be talking about the future of farmers markets, building collaborative practices, and Liz Lyons will be joining us on that. If you have been unable to join us for the previous webinars, they're listed here from the winter webinar series. But at this time, what I'd like to do is to thank our presenters, Deborah and Janie, for the great presentations and for sharing their expertise with us. And I'd like to also thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the webinar and were able to obtain information that you could use for your next growing season. Postings of this webinar will be archived on the Illinois Farmers Market Association website and the Illinois Local Foods YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us, and I hope to see you at our next webinar. Have a good day.